Once upon a time, a little girl named Alice was sitting in her garden with her sister Dinah on a lovely summer day. Alice was beginning to get bored listening to her sister read a dull book aloud. Suddenly, Alice spotted a white rabbit with pink eyes running by. The rabbit was wearing a waistcoat and pocket watch. Alice had never seen a rabbit wearing clothes before. She heard the rabbit shout, "I'm late! I'm so very late!" Astonished, she got up from amongst the flowers and ran after him. Where could such a rabbit be going? Alice wondered. She saw him jump into a hole beside a tree. She peered down into the hole, wondering where it might lead. She found herself leaning so far forward that she began to topple head first into the hole. Down and down, she fell through the darkness for what seemed like an age. Suddenly, she hit the floor with a soft thud. She had landed in a room with odd-sized doors of different colors, filling every inch of the walls. There was a little table next to her. It only had 3 legs, and on it was a tiny gold key and a pink glass bottle. The label around the bottle's neck said, "Drink me." Alice picked up the little key and tried it in all the doors. It fit in the smallest one, which was no bigger than a sheet of paper. "I'm too big to fit through such a little door," Alice mused. "But maybe this drink will help me." She drank every last drop of the pink liquid and began to shrink. She shrunk down and down until she was no bigger than the dolls she played with at home, a perfect size to fit through the door. On the other side, she found a beautiful garden filled with hundreds of different flowers. The flowers were taller than Alice, and they all had pretty faces surrounded by lush petals. "A girl!" they shrieked in high-pitched voices. "A dirty little girl!" "I'm not dirty," said Alice crossly. "I fell down a rabbit hole." She decided she didn't like these flowers much, so she walked onwards through the garden. Eventually, she came across a giant gray mushroom. On top of it, there sat a fat green caterpillar. He was blowing bubbles from a large wand and wore a fancy blue jacket. "Hello, sir," she called up. "I'm trying to get back to my regular size. Can you help?" The caterpillar lazily blew more bubbles. "One side makes you big. The other side makes you small," he purred to Alice. "One side of what?" she called back. "The mushroom, of course." Alice couldn't decide which side to pick, so she closed her eyes and grabbed a handful of mushroom. As she nibbled, she began to grow taller. "Thank goodness!" she cried. "I wonder what I should do now." "You could go that way to the Mad Hatter," said a voice, "or that way to the March Hare." Alice looked up and saw an orange cat sitting in a tree. He had a huge toothy grin and bushy tail. "Tell them the Cheshire Cat sent you," he said, still smiling. To Alice's surprise, he slowly faded away to nothingness, as if he'd never been there. Alice walked on until she came to a huge table in the middle of the trees. It was filled with pots of jam and scones, teapots, teacups, and cakes. "A tea party," thought Alice. A man with a wonky top hat and wild hair popped up from one of the seats. "If you want to eat, you have to answer a riddle," he screeched at Alice. "Oh, I love riddles," said Alice. "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" asked a giant hare with long brown ears. Alice guessed many different answers, but none made sense. "Have you given up?" asked the Mad Hatter. "Yes, what's the answer?" replied Alice. "Oh, we haven't the faintest idea," screamed the Hatter, and he and the March Hare fell about laughing. Alice was very cross. What a silly riddle if it didn't have an answer! She stomped away from the table. Soon she came across a palace with a huge rose garden filled with red roses. The Queen of Hearts was in the rose garden playing croquet. She was hitting the ball angrily with an upside-down flamingo. She seemed very annoyed as she smacked the ball across the garden. She screamed when she spotted Alice and pointed a fat finger towards her. "Someone's been stealing my tarts," she bellowed. "This girl, she's been stealing them." Alice was quite astonished. She was certain she hadn't eaten any tarts. Still, the Queen's guards seized her. They dragged Alice to a courtroom that was filled with all the different people Alice had met that day. In the jury box sat the March Hare, the Mad Hatter, the caterpillar, and the Cheshire cat. The judge entered in his wig and gown. It was the White Rabbit. "Little girl," he squeaked, "you are accused of stealing the Queen's jam tarts. How do you plead?" The court erupted into noise, and the Queen shrieked, "Off with her head!" The rabbit banged his little hammer. Alice felt someone touch her shoulder and opened her eyes. "Wake up," said her sister. "Oh!" cried Alice. "I had such a strange dream," said Alice. She told her sister all about the rabbit, the tea party, the Queen of Hearts, and the trial. Dinah wasn't paying much attention as she started reading her book again. Alice stopped and didn't bother to tell her any more. So she got up and wandered back through the garden into her house. Behind her, a little white rabbit with pink eyes scurried across the flower beds.